We're about to talk about PowerApps versus InfoPath, and it is going to be the battle between the up-and-comer and the new kid on the block. And let's, the heavyweight champion in the world and the up-and-comer. Sorry, different title. So a lot of you already know me, but for those of you that are not acquainted yet, my name's Nakia Carter. I'm Director of Collaboration and Training at a company called C3 Integrated Solutions in Arlington, Virginia. I used to run a company called Carter McGowan Services out of King George, Virginia. I do a lot of technical speaking, mostly on Office 365, SharePoint, and related technology. So InfoPath falls within the related technology sphere. InfoPath and PowerApps. You can see some of my street cred here. So what I've been doing since 2001 when I joined the IT sphere. I'm a published author, a tech speaker, and an advanced organizer. And then you can see some of my roles down there. But before we begin, we got to thank our sponsors, right? Because if the sponsors weren't here, you all would be paying a whole lot of money. Even with sponsors, sometimes you're paying a whole lot of money, but the sponsors make sure that these events are free. So make sure you go and thank them, at least visit them, see what they're doing, see what they're up to. They would enjoy your visit from you. Don't forget your local user groups, or maybe not so local, depending on what area you live in. The tech communities and other SharePoint conferences. Learning is an ongoing thing. And it's even more important now that we have the cloud, and the cloud is changing like every couple of seconds. It might be something different when I get in here and I start messing around. I might see some things and I might have to adjust. So you have to be prepared as much as you can to keep up with the trends. These are some of the best places, like the Baltimore SharePoint User Group. I run SharePoint User Group of DC, which always meets in like Arlington or Northern Virginia. I don't know why, even though it says DC. I inherited the thing, I didn't name it. There's the Federal SharePoint User Group and Women in SharePoint. There's a new Flow User Group run by Melissa Hubbard, who is one of the volunteers out there, and I think she was speaking today as well. So if you want to know about that, I don't think they're posted on Meetup yet. All the rest of them are posted on Meetup. If they're not, just go talk to Melissa if you're interested in that group. And there's the .NET Special Interest Group, and then of course there's your SPS events. SharePoint Fests that are always coming up through the year. They're SharePoint engaged, but we already passed that time frame. The Collab 365 community. So it's collab365.community is the URL for that. And then of course, Microsoft Tech Communities. If you guys have any questions, ask me. I am a certified technical trainer. I do a lot of technical speaking and training, so don't worry about interrupting me. I might have to finish my breath, but I would try to get to your question as soon as possible because I don't want you to lose what you were trying to say. All right, got to give some disclaimers. Notice the please don't hit me part. Literally, no shoes, no bananas, no anything, okay? Please. Just remember that we're working in the cloud. Cloud technology is always changing. So if something's different, and I'm fumbling, just give me a second, okay? I'll get my feedback under me and we'll continue on. Or I'll figure out what it is and get back to you guys later if it's a really important thing, okay? Also, please excuse my slides. So if there's something different between what my slides say and what's actually out there, you know, it's the cloud. I can't kind of help what they do on an every second basis. So this journey is a journey of 1,000 steps. So this presentation is an introductory presentation. It's meant to get you started in noticing what the differences are between InfoPath and PowerApps and when you want to use either one. Also, I'll tell you about some gotchas, but it is an introductory session, okay? So I might be able to dive deeper into some stuff, but mostly we're gonna kind of skim on the top. So let's get ready to rumble. I wanted to have the sound effect for that, but I couldn't find it. Which is hilarious because it's like everywhere, but you got to pay for it. Anyway, InfoPath, heavyweight champion of the world, right? InfoPath, for those of you that don't know about it, you probably all know about it, but it's a software that Microsoft bought out inside of the Office suite starting in 2003. And it's made a whole lot of strides since 2003, most notably the jump between 2007 and 2010 when you had the ability to auto-publish instead of having to step through all the steps to publish. Anybody remember that? Am I the only one? Okay. You feel my pain? You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, because that was hurt. That was a whole lot of pain, and you messed yourself up real bad if you didn't go through all the steps. But 2010 and 2013 were a whole lot better, but 2013 is the last one. Microsoft says it's quote unquote dead. It is not really dead. It's kind of like a zombie. So it's still walking around. It can still, consume things. You can still use it, but it is kind of dangerous in a way. All right. And it will get killed off eventually. Microsoft has moved that date out from 2023 to 2026. We'll see if it gets moved again. But I got a gotcha for that you especially might be interested in when I get to that part. So some of the features. Of course, there's rules, there's data validation, there's formatting, conditionally and unconditional formatting inside of the forms. There's the ActiveX controls, there's the ability to use XPath expressions, connecting to external data sources, which aren't as many as the ones in PowerApps, and it's way clunkier. Code behind, SharePoint integration, of course, and being able to customize your form based on user role. So it can be used as a standalone form. Yes, you could create an InfoPath form that does not connect to anything. It can sit in just a server environment or like in a shared space where people just go to it, they fill it out, they click submit, it auto refreshes itself, and maybe it submits itself somewhere else. It can stand by itself, but it can also be connected to or push data into all of these different places. So it could stand by itself and then push data into a certain thing, or be in that certain thing, like SharePoint. So it's used a lot to make pretty forms, because SharePoint forms are not all that pretty. They're not that customizable. You can't move stuff around. So being able to make your form a little bit more palatable to people, because people like pretty things, and sometimes they won't use it unless it's pretty. This is one of the ways that you can make it that way. You can also make your forms more functional. So being able to add like digital signatures and workflow in it or around it, built around it. Yes, I used to build workflows directly in InfoPath once I figured out how. It's basically workflows, most of the business processes are just notifications and status, right? You can do both with some conditions inside of InfoPath using rules. So I stopped using SharePoint Designer because the emails are so much faster. Anyway, moving on. Dashboards, reports, and content types. So inside of SharePoint, the form types are the list form, which is for the create, the view, and the edit forms. It replaces all of those forms, makes them a little bit more functional, but it's not as functional as the library forms. The library forms have to be initiated from outside, so they have to be initiated from InfoPath itself. The list forms are initiated from inside of SharePoint out to InfoPath. And we'll see that in a minute. PowerApps, the up-and-comer. PowerApps is basically the same thing. It's a way to make forms, but it's more powerful because you got the cloud involved, okay? This is kind of the timeline of when it first kind of got started, but a little bit before it, I think it was called Project Sienna or Sierra or something like that. A little bit before this, and then it was kind of introduced and then announced, and then became generally available. And those are the links if you ever want to go and click on them and read the material for that. So what are the features there? Basically everything that InfoPath can do, except for there's no XPath expressions. I shouldn't have scratched out the function part because they have their own functions, but there's no XPath expressions. Also the customizing user role part is not, I haven't seen that yet. So can't do that part. It can do all of the things the InfoPath can do as well, except for make content types. So that part kind of sucks in a way. And there's another gotcha that I'll tell you about too when you're trying to move these things. because it's a pain in the butt. All right, some of the options for PowerApps in SharePoint. If you customize SharePoint, meaning you're about to do something like the InfoPath list form, where you go, you say, in the list, I want to customize this form in particular, or the forms for this list, then you cannot, you can only open them in the SharePoint list. They don't show up in the PowerApps gallery, and I'll show you what I mean by that. It only works on lists. PowerApps only works on lists, which is also kind of crappy in that regard, that you can't, push it into a library through the customization anyway. You can embed it in a page. So if you've seen the modern pages and you saw that little web part that says PowerApps, you will be sad when you find out that you can't use that same Power App that you use to customize the SharePoint list. You can't just use that web app to embed it in the page. You're going to have to create a Canvas app, which is more work, and then embed it. Wah. And you can't move it easily between sites and environments. They have this thing called export, but the export, I haven't gotten it to work yet. I only know of one person so far that's gotten it to work, and that's April Durham. So she works in it a whole lot more than me. So maybe there's something I'm doing wrong. But it's not an easy package. Like with InfoPath, all you had to do was make it a template, make the list a template, and the whole thing just moves. Or you could take the InfoPath form and republish it to a different spot and then move it that way. Nope. Yeah. Yeah. It's coming along. I am starting to love it, so don't think I'm like, boo, PowerApps. I love InfoPath. I've always loved InfoPath, but I'm starting to get the PowerApps Jones. It's just sometimes you run into that wall and you're like, really? Y'all haven't got that yet? Standalone apps. Those do show up in the PowerApps gallery. They work on both lists and libraries. You can embed them in a page and you can use them anywhere, but you still have that export issue that could possibly happen to you. All right, live demo time. So I'm gonna kind of maybe disappear a little bit because I gotta kind of sit down and this chair is not set to the, well, that's as high as it goes. So we'll see if I can see you guys. I can see you guys somewhat. Okay. Let me escape out of this and then move this over here. All right. I didn't get a chance to reopen everything because I had to restart my computer. So we'll see how this works out. The first thing I'm going to show you is I have an InfoPath library and an InfoPath list here. Now they're both two simple ones. We'll start with the list. This InfoPath list looks like this. When I click on new, it brings up the InfoPath form. Okay. Now the way I created this thing, let me close this. For those of you that aren't familiar, especially now that you have the modern view, and for those of you that are familiar and you may be like, I don't see the tabs, because you need the tabs in order to be able to get to InfoPath. The only thing you see here on the action bar is PowerApps and Flow and other stuff that's not InfoPath. Okay. So the way you get to it, if you want to do that, is you got to return to classic SharePoint. That returns you to this look where you have the tabs. On the tab, there's the list. On the list tab, there is InfoPath down here. So that's how you create an InfoPath list form, is you click on this thing and it opens up InfoPath on your computer. And then you can do all of your customizations, which we'll look at the customizations in a little bit, just briefly, okay? I'll also tell you a little gotcha about this in a second. Then there's the library one. This one, because it's a form library, InfoPath forms can only be pushed to a form library, unless you make it a content type and then you can put it in anything you want. But as a form library form, it's like its own file. So this thing you see right here is the actual InfoPath form itself. So it's not like married to, smashed with completely paste it to the list, or library in this case. It's kind of like its own separate document thing that you can just use. Like when you click on the new button in a document library, you normally get the drop down with, you know, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and OneNote and all of that. Or here you get InfoPath, and before you can do anything, it actually switches you over to the InfoPath form. Now this one is a little bit more powerful than the list form because there are things that you can do in the library that you can't do in the list. For example, putting a repeating table in here. So that's one of the things. But there's some more stuff. So let me go ahead and open up InfoPath. And it's, oh, yeah, it opened over here. Let me move it over here. And this is what you get when you open up InfoPath. Now, for those of you that are on Office 365 and you're trying to get InfoPath back, if you didn't re-download it, you need to go log into the portal for your Office 365 account. You go to the place where all your software is. I forget exactly where it is, but if you go to the Office 365 homepage, there's like a little drop down for your download software. You go to that download software page, and one of the tabs that'll be on this side will say, I think it says like other software or something like that. You click on it, that's where Designer and InfoPath is. Or you do a search for InfoPath in Office 365. And you'll get to a page that'll say it'll be Office 365's version of InfoPath 2013. If you're on-prem, then you know, you just get it. Hopefully you already have it, but you can still get it that way too. Okay. Because it's not in Office anymore. Office is continuing on. InfoPath is not a part of it, any of those updates. Okay, so it's a totally separate thing, even though it kind of looks like it's part of the Office because you got the account here. Now this is where I'm gonna tell you about the little gotcha, because I found this out the other day, which kind of was like, why? Like I said, it's not really attached to the Office anymore. So notice how these aren't signed in, even though I have them up there and I've signed into it several times. The issue is because my company uses MFA, and I have MFA, which is multi-factor authentication, on my dev environment. It won't allow me to stay signed in. So every time I have to sign in, and I have to do it in a specific way. So I can't just say connect and allow this to go down this way. I actually have to like try to push the form, and then when I get that pop-up that says you need to sign in, and it has like the accounts that you've signed into before, click new, even though, or sign in using an other account. I think it says other account, not new. You have to click the other account, do all of your step throughs, like your type in your email address and type in your password, then it will trigger MFA. If you don't, it's just gonna block you, and it's gonna say, something's wrong with your account, try again later. And then you try again later, and it's still doing it. Okay, I wrote a blog on it on LinkedIn, so if you guys need help, extra help with that explanation, just go to my LinkedIn account, go look at my posts, my blog posts, and it's there. Because I was just like, I got to tell the world. Some people were going to have a problem with this. Some people have probably already had a problem with it and just gave up. But just so you know. All right, so let me go back here. Whoops, I meant to go to new. That's what I meant. Okay. All right, so under new, you see the most popular ones start off with SharePoint lists and library forms. But then you have your email form, your blank form, blah, 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 web service, a whole bunch of other different things that most people don't use. Most people either make it standalone and then do a data connection into something, or they use the SharePoint forms. So let me open up one of my forms. Which, like I said, I apologize because I had to shut everything down. So everything that I had open and ready is no longer open and ready. It was the not request form sample roster. All right. So here is like my thing with all of my forms in it and other pieces of code. So I'm going to open up, right click on and hit design, because you know you can't just double click on a form, right? If you double click on the form, it opens it up in filler mode, not in design mode. So you got to right click on it, click design. Now, I know I'm going over some stuff that you guys are probably like, I already know this, Nikki, why are you telling me? I'm telling you for certain people that might have forgotten, or you might not have known, okay? And you might be wondering, how the heck do I get into this thing? So now that it's in, dang, all that's like dark up there. Now that it's in design mode, I could do things like edit the text. I can manage my rules, which I do have. I think I have some rules on this thing. I have some rules here. You could do things like being able to change the design with these really funky looking layouts, which don't turn out looking like they look right here, which is really frustrating. So I always make my own layout. You can insert tables and hyperlinks and all of that stuff. You can make add your web service. But most of the time, you're just going to go to like data connections and add a data connection or something like that. When you're using a list form, the data connection between the list and the form are already there. So you don't need to make any other data connections unless you're trying to push that data to a different place. But in a library form, you have to create the data connection to go to whatever library that you want it to go to. If not, when you hit submit, it's just going to be like, I don't know what to do. Sorry. Okay. Now this form, because it's a library form, I could publish it anywhere I want it to go. So like I said, and unlike PowerApps, which I haven't gotten the export to work, you could just take, especially if you make it as a library form, you could just take that form and just publish it anywhere else. I published this thing to at least 2 different tenants, Office 365 tenants. Might have been more. All right. Anybody got any questions on the list forms or the library form? No? Okay, cool. Let's get into the real fun. All right, so let's talk about the PowerApps side. Where's my mouse? Okay, there it is. I have a PowerApps list here, which I think this is the one that actually has I connected the, whoops. I got to go back to modern because this is not going to work out good. Oh, it's all the way down there. I didn't see that. All right, so let me go back to the list. So for this list, I just recreated the other list that I had. That InfoPath list that we looked at, the first one, this one right here, is basically collecting an employee name, a phone number, and an email. I did the same thing for this PowerApps. Okay. So when you click the new here, oh crap. I think it disconnected. All right, so not when you click the new here. I guess I'm gonna have to go through the example right now. Okay, so if I wanted to make this thing into a PowerApps, like yay! See, I told you, right? I told you I was gonna have some possible issues that pop up. If I wanted to turn this list into a PowerApp, or at least what I'm about to do is not turn it into a PowerApp. I'm about to do the same thing like with the list form. I'm going to make the new form, the edit form, the view form, all of them are going to turn into the PowerApp that I'm going to create. Okay, so I go here under PowerApps and I click create app. I'm sorry, not create, customize form. That's what I click, customize form. Now notice I gotta log in here. Same MFA thing is gonna happen to me. So what I gotta do is go here, and even though I had my login up at the top, ignore it, go through the whole typing or your MFA, if you're using it, is not going to trigger, which is crappy. But such is life sometimes. All right, so now I need my password. And of course, my LastPass is signed out. Lord have mercy. Okay. Hopefully that is right. And where's my phone? Because I have MFA on every daggone thing. There we go. All right, so let me try to get my password now. All right, now my MFA for this will come up. If I just clicked on my login, the first one, it would have just said, you can't authenticate. And it would kept taking me back to that, you need to authenticate button, and you keep clicking it, you keep going through the process, and you just get mad because it's just horrible. All right, so now I am in. And hopefully my form is still there, and I'm guessing it's not. I don't know how it got destroyed. You want my feedback, really? I think I'm going to skip. Yeah, now is not a good time to ask me for no feedback. Because it looks like, yep, it took my whole daggone form down. I don't understand what the heck happened with that. Okay. So anyway, it gives you a basic form, kind of like what InfoPath would do if you opened up the list form in InfoPath. It would give you this like really vanilla form. Now with the form, I could do things like inserting text, modifying the text, filling and all of that stuff, which I'll show you in a second. Inserting things like buttons and labels and controls and text and forms, which would be like new screens like this. This right here is a screen for editing, because you can see the default mode is edit right there. I can put in like data sources from other places, which we'll talk about, hopefully the Office 365 email connector in a minute, if we have enough time left. Collections, variables, all of that stuff. And I don't really use this, but if you wanted to put like a flow, if you wanted to build a workflow around it instead of the workflow in it, then you would use flows. Okay. So now, if I wanted to make this form just a little bit prettier, I could do this. Like I can move, come on, don't do that. I usually move this section down. Okay, so I could add a header here. So I would like insert image, and then on the image, when the image pops up, then I'll get the image settings on the side. Okay, now these have a few different places to it. They have properties, which is some of the basic things like color and size and padding and all of that stuff. I'm going to skip over rules for a second. They have advanced here. So sometimes you'll have like a control and there'll be like a little lock on it. Certain things you won't be able to change until you unlock the control. Okay. But some things you'll be able to change, especially on the property side. A lot of the stuff will be unlocked. But when you go to the advanced side, for other things like the on select action, things like that, they may be locked depending on what type of thing you're using. If it's a text control, if it's a drop down, depending on what kind of control it is, it may be locked. And you just go to advanced and lock it. Rules, don't be fooled, okay? For those of you that know InfoPath and you were like, yay, rules, this is cool. No, it's not cool. It doesn't work the same way. Okay. So Some of the thing that is a little cool is that, or at least I saw that it was demoed, but I haven't been able to get it to work, was that you could create a rule and then you could do some stuff and it would like record it. Remember how you would have that happen with, what was it? Microsoft Visual something in Office, macros and stuff. Okay, I forgot it was Microsoft.
Where you could, it would just you follow your actions and record that. Yeah.
And it will record it and make those the rules for you. So it's kind of the same thing like that. It's not like the rules of InfoPath where you can make like if, then, else, you know, if this type of thing happens, then do, not that.
Okay. Microsoft Visio?
No, it was like MSTA? Microsoft Visual Studio something?
It was like a VBA or something.
Applications. Microsoft Visual Studio applications. It was like a little mini Visual Studio that allowed you to like do code, but you could also just record your actions using macros. Yeah, that's throwback. It's way back there. People still use it though, but all right. So let me go ahead and make this a actual picture. Just put my company logo on here. Where the heck is it? Everything looks weird from this angle. Let's see. Oh, there it is, this one. It's the one I want. Okay, I can add my logo. Now see how this box is like still a box, but my logo is a rectangle? You just ignore it, okay? It just for some reason it looks weird like that at first. You do whatever resizing you need to do, and then it starts looking like it actually makes some sense, okay? Now I also like adding like text next to it, but because of the orientation right now, it's not going to look too good, so I need to change my orientation. I could go to the file, and under, oh, wait a minute, what the heck did you just do? Oh, wait a minute, I think I got to save it first. Let me save. Now, where am I? There we go. All right. So you see it right here, I have size and orientation under my app settings. I can go down here and I could change it small, large, custom. I normally change it to landscape so that it's wider, and then I have more real estate to work with, and I can easily like put fields beside each other and people still have enough room to type for the most part. So I'm going to change it to that. I can also set custom dimensions, but I would say that maybe you would try to keep it closer to this, because sometimes it just does some really crazy stuff when you go crazy with the dimensions. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it on that. I'm going to go back, which takes me back to the Power App, and see now I have extra space. So I can click on the form, because when I click on this part, I'm sorry, I'm not clicking on the form. When I click on here, it takes the whole form and gives me the adjustment bar knobby thingies, and then I can adjust it like that. And then I can make my logo bigger, and then maybe add a label next to it. Dude, where'd you go? Oh, there it is. Now here's the text right here. Now notice the text is in quotes, so it has to stay in quotes whatever you change it to, or it's going to throw up on you. Oops. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. All right. It's all teeny, so I need to make it bigger. Now I like using these controls up here because I'm more of a point and click person. But if you like, or you need, because sometimes you really have to go to the panel and put in some specific numbers or whatever, the panel is here for you too. Where is my size? That's weird. My size is gone, so I guess I gotta go here and make the text size. Where the heck are you? Oh, right. Although, well, I don't think you have to have the text highlighted. You just need the. Another thing that you can do is you can go here on the side panel. Here we go. Font. No, that's the type of font. Is it height? Oh, I think that's the height of the. I'm looking for the font size. Oh, it's size. All right, there we go. So sometimes if you don't see what you need, you got a few different places to look. 17 is bigger, but not quite as big as I would like it. But now the form is already prettier. I could make other adjustments, like being able to, oops, this screen is, SharePoint form is up too far. So I can adjust it like that. Also, when I'm clicked onto the SharePoint form, I could do things like being able to modify the data by clicking on data over here. I could say which columns I want to show up, like maybe I want to get rid of attachments because that doesn't make any sense. I could change the layout. I could snap columns together or put multiple on a certain row and then adjust as needed. So I know that I want most of them to be 2 by 2, but some of them I want to make it expand the whole row. I can always change that just by dragging. Okay, is everybody good with that part? All right, because I'm going to move on.
It just feels like a developer-heavy version of InfoPath almost.
Well, it can get pretty developer-heavy when you start adding like code and stuff, which you can. I'm not getting into that part today, except for maybe the email connector. Again, if we have time, I want to be able to explain that, but we'll see.
That's always been my problem with PowerApps. It's just from an end user perspective, it's very intimidating. People open up and get those panels.
Yeah. And it also can be kind of clunky because it's not a desktop application. So one thing that could be a problem is if you are attached to Wi-Fi, because it's an online cloud type thing, the Wi-Fi, if it's being slow, it's going to slow your form's response down. So sometimes you might be clicking on something, you're like, click. Why aren't you opening? Why aren't you opening? Why aren't you moving? Because I've had things that wouldn't move. It was because I was connected to Wi-Fi. When I connected Ethernet, then it worked fine. Or at least it worked better. I would say it worked fine. It's not as easily responsive as a desktop app would be because a desktop app is on your desktop and that's all it does and that's where it lives and it's not connected to the web for anything. Okay. All right, so now when I click on new, that is huge. There's my new form. And I have my save button up here and the cancel button, just like how you have in InfoPath when you use the list form, it automatically gives you a save and a cancel button and a couple other things. So you already got that. All right. I also made some of these forms via the Canvas style. So you could do one or two things. You could go here and you could say, not customize form, I keep going to the wrong one, create an app. But what I normally do is I just go open up another tab. I go to create.powerapps.com, which already comes up. And then it kind of opens up my account, if you see it up here, with some PowerApps stuff that I can go ahead and create. Now, if you start with SharePoint, it's going to give you only the ability to do a phone app, which is cool, but also cannot be so cool if you wanted a bigger tablet size app. Okay, so if you want a tablet size app, what you have to do is you go to blank app and you do a tablet layout. Okay, now I have both apps already kind of built. Hopefully it didn't blow away those two apps for me too. So let me go to open, and then I'm going to browse my apps, and I have employee info and employee info 2. So employee info is my attempt to do it via the blank app. I added my own data connections, and it was a tablet. So let's go into that. Yeah. Okay. When you get your blank app, okay, the only screen it comes with is this screen right here. And what it has on this screen, if I can make this a whole lot bigger, it says add an item to insert, like a control or something, and connect to data. I wanted to connect this to SharePoint, okay? So if I click on connect to data, then it'll open up this panel where I'm able to see some of the connections that I've already initiated. So if you remember, because I didn't point it out, I should have pointed it out. When we first opened up the Create, there were some things on the left navigation. One of the things was connections, and I think flows was over there too, okay? Sometimes you have to create your connection first before you can use your connection. Use it by adding it here, okay? So these connections I had already initiated, so that's why they're showing up. If you don't have it, then you need to click on New Connection, and then try to go through the connection and find it, and then do whatever logging in or whatever you need to do. Now this is new because before when I clicked on it, it took me to another page. It opened up another page. So that's new today, or maybe last night when I was sleeping, because that was not the other day. But that's cool because I now don't have to leave the screen. I can just stay in the same screen and get to whatever it is I need to get to, add the connection, probably have to sign in. Like for SharePoint, it may ask you to sign in or not, depending on how you're already connected. So I already have my connections right here. One of them is already SharePoint. So I'm just going to click on it, and it's going to say you can add this recent site, or I could have put a URL in there, but I already had a URL. And then it tells me all the places I can connect to. So one of those places that I would like to connect to is my PowerApps. Oh, well, actually, I don't remember if the PowerApps 2 list has anything in it. So I think I was going to use that as my creation. Now, I already had a connection in here, so that's why you see 2. But I wanted you to see what happens when you walk through it. If you need to get rid of any of the connections, you just click on the 3 dots and you can remove it. Okay. So with my blank app, my blank canvas app, it's blank. There's nothing in it, period, except for that one screen. It doesn't really do anything except for gives you these 2 options. So you have to add your own screens. Like I added a view screen and I added an edit screen, which I already customized. Some of the screens are already here under new screen. So the view screen and the edit screen, both of them I used the list screen. I just changed one to be a different default type than the other one. One was edit, one was the other one. Okay? You guys get what I'm saying, or do I need to kind of step through that? Because I'm running out of time and I wanted to get to I really want to show you guys the email connector, because that thing took me through some issues. I wanted y'all to know about it. Okay? All right. So I had to create those 2 screens. Notice that even on this type of screen, I don't have a search box. Have you seen on some of those Power Apps where it has a search box up at the top? It doesn't work like that in tablet, which that took me by surprise. I was like, what? Now, I've seen some articles that say you can create it, and I started to step through it, and I was like, you know what? I don't have time because y'all need to see some kind of presentation, not me monkeying around with stuff just on the fly. So I didn't continue with it. But it looks like there's some articles out there that will help you build a search box, even though it won't be as nice as the search box that comes with the phone app. So let's look at the phone app real quick. Just going to open Info 2. Now this one, I made it a phone app. Now remember, you could have started, and I started with a blank form. You could start with the SharePoint data one that we saw. Just click on that instead of clicking on the blank form, because it'll give you the phone app. Okay. It has a search box there. Also, if you do it using the SharePoint instead of the blank, you don't have to create all your screens. It creates all your screens for you. So yes, I created all these screens: the view screen, the edit screen, the display screen, the new screen. Created all those things using these things right here. The form, which I made editable for the edit and new, and I made view only for the view, but then I used this list one for the display of all items. Okay. Now each time you got to connect it back to the data. So if you know you want to do SharePoint and you want to create a Canvas app, just use the SharePoint Canvas app unless you really need to make it a tablet. It's going to kind of suck as far as the orientation and the size, but I don't see why anybody would use it on a tablet without going to SharePoint. They would more than likely use it on their phone, so it kind of makes more sense to me. But I think they should have both options. So I should probably put that in the recommendations. Oh. Thing on the recommendations, if you guys put recommendations out there in user voice, get 50 votes. I don't care who votes on it, but Microsoft listens once there's 50 votes on it. Okay, when it's 50 votes, then they go look. Less than 50 votes, it's just going to sit there. Make sure you explain every detail that you possibly can imagine, or they're also going to throw it out because they won't know what you're talking about. Okay? All right, little sidebar there. All right, everybody good with this? Cool. All right, so I'm going to use, shoot. No, I want to actually show you a different, oh, there was one thing that I wanted to, no, I'll do it on a different thing. Where's my mouse?
You didn't switch it to black the other day.
Yeah, I did not.
I took that to work. And everyone was like, "You've changed my life. Thank you."
Yeah, I really need to do that and stop messing around. Of course I didn't. I was just like, I didn't know that was there. And then I didn't do it. All right, I'm going to attempt to quickly, hopefully, log into my company account. So I can show you a demo on one of my more recent creations. And then I'm probably going to have to give you guys the pieces of the connector. I will try to do it in the slides so I can talk through what the pieces are so you guys aren't confused. Because it took me a minute to figure it out in the article, on the, not the TechNet article, in the docs. It tells you the different parts, but only to a certain point do you see what the example looks like. So you don't know what the heck it's supposed to look like unless you're used to that, the hint that comes up, like in Visual Studio, the IntelliSense. If you're not used to that, you're just going to be like trying to figure it out, which will take you a while. It took me a while, and I'm used to IntelliSense. Later, I was like, duh, I should have just looked at the IntelliSense. No matter how many years you have of experience in anything, you can always be a dummy. Just for a couple of minutes, but you know, you can always be like an idiot for a minute. All right, that, and I need to go here to this demo. All right, so scenario. We need a way for our customers to be able to submit a ticket to our system, but a way for them to be able to get to something that's pretty in their environment that will actually submit the ticket to our ConnectWise, and then we can go from there, okay? So we have this onboarding list right here where you get the employee name, start date, their email address, their license, that they're supposed to be getting initiated, mobile number, multi-factored. Is that going to be a thing that they need? So forth and so on. You know, typical, I'm about to start an account for a user that's under my purview. Even if you are a partner or you're not a partner, even if it's an internal customer for you, it might be something that you need to do. I created the list, I customized the form, and this is what it looks like. Now on this form, this came from a Word doc that they were using at first, but it's kind of clunky. So I have my own submit button here, even though I still have the save and the cancel buttons up here. But the save will only save the changes. It's not going to actually do any action. The action under my submit is going to email the person, which is actually ConnectWise, is going to email ConnectWise, and the ConnectWise is going to take the data in, okay? I also have some instructions for that internal IT person, because at the bottom, there was a checklist at the bottom of the Word form, but I didn't want to have them scroll down too far on this form to find the checklist. So I made it a button here. So what I did on my PowerApps form is I added a button, and then I used the navigate function so that when you click on it, it flips over to the other screen. So this is a completely screen. Yeah, this is
view.
No, it's a screen.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like the view, but they call it screen.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had to use it's a navigate function, and all you do in that navigate function is you say navigate, and then it'll actually, once you type in navigate and the opening paren, the IntelliSense will kick in, and it'll say that you need to choose which screen you want. You'll get a list of your screens. You choose the screen. The next thing is a comma, and then what kind of transition do you want? And it'll actually tell you. It's like, I forget, it's something dot none, something dot fade, something dot something. Okay, you get like 3 options. The none is what I use. It's just a flip. I could have used the fade, which means one screen would have faded out and the other screen would have faded in. You guys know what fade is, right? And I forget what the other one is, but I was like, nah, people just want to flip. So this button just flips it back to the first screen. Now the submit is the special part, okay? The submit actually sends an email to a bunch of different people right now, but what it's going to do later is going to submit it to ConnectWise. Do you guys know what ConnectWise is? It's a tool that managed service partners use to track tickets. It's a help desk tool, but it does a little bit more than that. All right, so I need to get to that test. All right. I'm just trying to get to the right email so I don't waste you guys' time with email that doesn't make any daggone sense. All right, as you can see, once I put this over here, I went through a whole bunch of different tests. Now what I had to do, because the email connector is one long string of code with different pieces. That's how their code works in PowerApps. So I had to do a lot of formatting. I had to figure out what the new lines were in the subject part, in the body part. There's a lot of stuff. So you guys are going to get all of this for free. Yay! But this is what my email looks like. So it has the top part, which, why are you showing up? This top part, which is the subject line. These are the people that I'm emailing to. The email connector uses whoever's email account is actually using the form. So they have to, the first time, get into it, and they have to say, yes, email connector, you have permission to use my email to send this out. Okay, so that's one thing that people might freak out. Why am I getting this thing? Dude, just click yes so you can use the form, okay? Other than that, you're not going to be able to use the form. Email's not going to go anywhere. Just calm down. You know how people freak out. This part is the body. So let me show you what the code looks like. Oh crap, it is oh, I have until 11:15, don't I?
Yep.
Oh man, I was all rushing. I had way more time. Way more time. Yeah, I was rushing my butt off. I was like, I'm never gonna get through all of this. Okay. All right, so whoops, and that just went back to my other thing. If you
Is this
are
Canvas now? What are you in now?
I'm in OneNote.
OneNote, okay.
Yeah. I have been a developer for 17 years, and I've worked in a bunch of different types of languages. And if you started off like me when Unix was around and there was just that, I forget what the heck it was called. It was some kind of snail mail. I forgot the name of it, but you had to go to an actual like campus or your work to see your email, and it was like on the green screen. Remember the dot matrix printer? I still have code from that because that's one of those coders that just doesn't get rid of anything. If you're, a developer, you probably still have like code that isn't worth a damn, but you ain't gonna throw it out, right? So I keep copious notes on a lot of stuff, or at least I try to, especially when I'm trying to learn something, or I realize the documentation out there isn't helpful enough to help me quickly the next time I'm trying to figure out, what the hell did I do the last time? I can't remember what I did. So I use OneNote to keep all of my notes. Even sometimes I just copy whole articles and stick it in there, because have you ever seen an article disappear on you? It happened to me one time. It was so bad. And I couldn't recreate it either. So I had to figure out something totally different, which really sucked. So let's look at this one right here, okay? Because this is the actual code part that I use. Before we do that, let me show you where I stuck it, so that you know, and also tell you how I screwed up real bad. All right, so customize the form.
Nothing.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
no problem. Just thought somebody was saying something to me. Okay, so the form is opening up. You can skip that part. All right. So right now I have the whole form, SharePoint form right here. I have it highlighted so that I can actually get to the properties of the form, okay? Over here is, Lord have mercy, where are you? Where are you? You're not over here, I know that much. Oh, the screen is gonna drive me crazy. I think it's like further down. Oh, wait a minute. Am I looking at the right place? I'm not looking at the right place, am I? I am looking at the right place. There is, oh, wait a minute. No, I'm not looking at the right place. Duh. I needed to go to advanced. There is, on the advanced screen, there's this thing called on success, on reset, and on failure. So you can add different code here to put actions that happen before when the person clicks the save. If it's successful, do a certain thing. If they say reset it, then do a certain thing. The reset automatically resets the form. So unless you want something else to happen before the reset, like if they cancel or they, if they cancel, and it'll automatically blank out the form. It'll automatically reset the form. So you don't need to put anything in there for the reset. Same thing for the save or the on success. It automatically saves it. Now I'm gonna tell you where I screwed up here, okay? For some reason, I put my code here at first, on success. For some reason, every time I clicked the save, it kept sending the email for the same user, the very first use case that I used. very first test case. And I could not get it to go to whatever the next one was. So it kept saying test user 1, and I was on like test user 16. And it just kept doing that. So me having a rookie moment, because sometimes you go back to those, right? Sometimes you just got to get refreshed on how it felt to be a rookie. Okay? There's a function that you can use instead of reset form. There's one called submit form. So I put the Office 365 connector code that I'm going to break down for you guys in a minute in there, but then I added the submit. Anybody tell me what happened? I thought because I left the reset form and the hide request there, that it would just stop. I had an infinite loop for like 25 minutes. My boss was texting me. My other guy from my other leadership, he was laughing at me via text. He was like, "You did an infinite loop, didn't you?" I was like, "Yes." I'm all about to cry because I'm tired as heck. I want to go to bed. Okay? And of course, I did it right before I was just about to clock out. Of course, at 11 o'clock at night. But anyway. So as he was laughing at me via text, and my other boss was like, "Could you make it stop?" I'm trying to get support, and support's like 25-minute wait time. So I'm trying to figure out what the heck to do to make it stop. Because literally every second, getting an email, every second. And of course it's connected to my phone, and it's connected to their phones. So they're getting like ding, 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 ding. I had to turn my ringer off because it was just driving me nuts. So what he said in the course of him laughing at me, he said they did the same thing last week with Flow. And what they had to do is they had to delete the whole flow. And I was like, but, no, I don't want to do that. Do you know how long it took me to get to this point? I do not want to break all of this stuff that I just finished. And he was like, well, I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. But then I thought about it for a second. I was like, I added the submit form. Maybe just get rid of the submit form. So actually, I just deleted everything except for what was those two, and then republished it, and it stopped. So there you go. I'm going to post that on Office 365 Collab community next week. I'm going to do a video on blog on that because others need to learn from my epic failure. That was serious, like hashtag rookie time. Hashtag fail. But you know, we all have those times that happen. So if you have something like that, sometimes it's just as simple as removing a certain part of the code. Just telling you. Because this on success actually submits the form. So it was submitting, and then it was submitting, and then it started over. Submit and submit. Even though I thought this reset would stop it. It doesn't. Yeah. Logically it makes sense. But not to PowerApps. That's not logical for PowerApps. Okay, so I put it in this button instead. So there it is right here. On select, do all this stuff, plus at the very end, submit the form. Okay, so now let me break it down for you. Here is we're gonna focus on, crap, if I can find my mouse. We're going to focus on this one. Let me break it out into like, I don't have Notepad up. What? No, actually, let me make another page. I'll put it on a different page. That way I can use the highlights. Okay. So here's the function. The function is called Office 365 Submit Email. Before you can use Office 365.submit email, you have to initiate a connector in your, crap, forgot to show you guys that. You have to initiate a connector in your properties. Oh, wait a minute. No, is it? I always forget where the heck the connector goes. Data source. have to add a data source for owner properties. Crap. Okay, anyway. Let me go to view. I don't know why they always put it under view. It's like data sources under view. Why am I going to view for that? Yeah, weirdness. Okay, so if I click on the button, then it opens up the thing that I'm trying to show you. Okay. There is 2 email connector things that you might get confused about. Okay. So if I go to add data sources, the one that you want to add is, come on, new connectors. There's one called Outlook.com. Let me go. Whoops. There's one called Outlook.com. You don't want that one. Okay. You don't need these 2 things because Outlook Customer Manager is something different, and Task, of course, is Task. Okay. You want the one that says Office 365 Outlook. That's the right one. This one. Okay. Then that function will work. If not, when you try to use the function, it'll say, I don't know what you're talking about, because it doesn't have the correct connector connected in there to understand what that code means. All right, so let me pull this up again. And crap, now I am actually out of time. Okay, so real quick. The email connector has different parts. Your email address or email addresses has to be in quotes, double quotes, with commas, not semicolons. Semicolons don't work. Know how long it took me to figure that out? Yeah. Yeah. Then a comma for the next part. The next part is the subject line. Okay, so there's my subject line. Of course, it's in quotes because it's text. Yes, I could use one of the cards, one of the fields, and replace it like I have some of these things right here. It says data keycard.text. I could replace it with something off of the form, but right now I'm just using regular text for this part, except for now I'm ending it with this data keycard.text should actually say title, because it's the title, which is the employee name, which I renamed in SharePoint to say employee name instead of title. So it's that text. So that's how I got new Cook Ross onboarding request for employee test user, whatever it was. Then the next part is the body. And the body is this super long thing right here until we get down right here. All of this stuff is all together between commas. So there's commas splitting up the parts of the function. Okay. One of the most important things that I want to show you is this char 13. That's how I got the new line. Char parentheses 13. There's also char parentheses 10, which is not exactly a hard line. It's something else. I forget what the heck it is. I think it's a tab instead of a new line. Okay. Don't worry about taking all the notes on this because I'm going to put it in my slides and give it to you guys too. Plus, you're going to have the video that I'm talking about it. Hopefully it's all turning out good on this video. This last part was the part that got me really bad because I couldn't figure out how it says in the doc that there is a way that you could do a send as somebody else. So it's a from. There's a comma right here. And then squiggly brackets, and then in the squiggly brackets, you can do from, CC, and BCC. So if you just wanted to do from, you could just do from and not the rest of them. But it's from, colon, whatever the email address is. Now this part is tricky because the person that you want to send as has to accept that their email account can be used for the connector. So if it's like a ghost account or an account that you're using like a service account, you need to log into that service account, go to the Power App, and hit the new, and then accept, yes, I want it to be able to use the email. Also, that account has to have an email license. it's not going to work. Okay, that's another thing. You have to have an email license in order for the email connector to work. If not, it's just not going to fire. Period. All right, so I am way over time, so let me just close out real quick. So, InfoPath, like Mike Tyson, as far as this battle royale. You know, Mike Tyson was powerful and lovable at times, but scary at other times. And he was the heavyweight champion of the world, but no longer. His day is over, just like InfoPath's day is mostly over. There are some situations where you still need to use InfoPath, like you don't have PowerApps for whatever reason, or your company has not gotten accustomed to, let's move to this new thing because they're scared, or it's just going to take too much time and they don't want to do it right now. They're putting it off. A catch here is in GCC High. If any of you are using that for your customers, or you're a government contractor and you're about to switch to GCC High, or your agency is about to switch, InfoPath is, all the connectors are there for InfoPath and SharePoint Designer, but they declared it dead and they did not move it over, which means you don't have PowerApps, you don't have Flow, you don't have InfoPath, and you don't have SharePoint Designer, so good luck.
What's the GC? What's that? The government?
Government Community Cloud.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's the, right now, my last email that my boss sent was kind of a little bit screamy to the Microsoft person. But it's like, that's not a good answer. So we don't know what to do there, but I'm just letting you know so that you know if you're in that situation. Now, PowerApps, if any of you watch wrestling, which from all of your faces, I don't think any of you do. Does anybody watch wrestling? Am I by myself in this joke?
Still today?
I know who those guys are.
Yeah. Oh, you know, yeah, this is from today.
Oh no, I'm back in the day.
Oh, yeah. This is the new day, okay? This is this group that is like hilarious, but you kind of don't want to like them because they could be kind of corny, but they make you love them, okay? So it's kind of the same thing for PowerApps. PowerApps is like the new day. 3 times the power, colorful, kind of fun, also kind of frustrating, but it makes you like it, okay? And its time is now. If you need help, you can always go to Learn or the Community tab under powerapps.microsoft.com, or you can reach out to us. And here is our information right here. Again, you guys will get the slides at a minimum, but hopefully you'll also get the video. We'll see. Thanks, guys. Sorry about running over and sorry about being late.